Welcome, and today we're going to be learning about if functions. This is going to be the first of the three functions that we learn in the Excel unit. So make sure that you are taking notes, whether it's on maybe a device that you have next to you, a second computer that you have, or simply a piece of paper and you write down those notes. But what is an if function? An if function is going to allow us to have two answer options, and it's going to be made up of three clauses. And I'm going to talk about this. The way that you want to think about an if function is as a true or false statement. So, is Sally's hair red? If it is, then that's true, and if it's not, then that's false. And you can see how I'm using the if word there. So let's go a little bit deeper and find out a little bit more about if functions. The first part of our function is the conditional clause. And again, I said that there were three clauses, and the first one is the conditional clause. This is going to be a question or statement. So this is an example of the first part of the function that you see here. And this is the way that you would read it. So as you can see here, the way that we start off the if function is with an equal sign, followed by if, just like we do the sum function. Then you do an open parentheses, C2, which would be the cell, so whatever cell you're referring to, and whatever question or statement you're asking. So I read this. If C2 is less than 1,970. So this is the question or the statement. So we're looking to see, is that true or false? And if it is, what would the answer be? And if it's not, what would the answer be? And again, this right here is just the first part of the function. And this second part here is just the part that we are reading. If you need to pause and rewind, please pause and rewind in case you missed anything. The next part is the true answer. Oh, sorry about that. Let me go back. Didn't mean to fast forward. The true answer is if the condition is going to be true. So just like a true and false statement, the answer could be true. So if C2 is less than 1,970, which means that the number that is in cell C2 would have to be lower than 1,970. If it is, then the answer is whatever is in cell D2 times 0.75 or multiply by 0.75. Now again, this is just an example. This is not what it is every time. And as we're looking at this, the first thing that we see is our conditional statement or our conditional clause, followed by a comma. All of your clauses are separated by commas, so you see a comma here. Then we have our second clause, which is our true answer. And again, I would read this. If C2, whatever's in cell C2, is less than 1,970, you take cell D2 and multiply it by 0.75. Then we have the false answer. This is the last of our clauses. If the conditional clause is false, then the answer is this, is basically what this area is saying. So if C2, whatever that number in cell C2, is greater than or equal to 1,970, then we know that the answer is false. And the answer would be that we would do D2 and we would multiply it by 0.15. Again, notice the comma that separates it. And also notice the order. Conditional clause, true statement, false statement. It always has to go in this order. If you switch false and true, then your answer is wrong. You also will never have a conditional clause anywhere else but the beginning. So if you put any greater than, less than, or equal signs in the second or third part of the function, then you have done something wrong and you need to reevaluate. Again, notice we have two commas separating the clauses. So let's look at an example or more examples. Okay, so here are some sample formulas. Go ahead and look at this, and I want you to try first to figure out what this says. So pause the video, figure out how you would read it, and then play it and see if you got it right. All right, so if you said if N1 is less than or equal to 25, then the answer is 50. If whatever in cell N1 is greater than 25, then the answer is 100. Hopefully you got that right. If you didn't, you want to make note of that so you understand that when we have 2, that means less than or equal to. And if you need to replay that back, please do. Now, move on to the second one and go ahead and do the same thing. Pause the video, see if you can figure out how you should read it, and then play it back and see if you got the right answer. If you said, if B2 is less than K25, the answer is 0. And if B2 is less than or equal to K25, then the answer is B2 times 15% or 0.15. If you said that, then great job, way to go. Go ahead and move on to the next one. Pause the video, think about it, play it back. If you said, if C9 is greater than the minimum of C2 through C7, then the answer is C11. If C9 is less than or equal to the minimum of C2 through C7, then the answer is C14. So hopefully you got that right. If you didn't, you want to make sure that you look at that again. I know that this part was a little bit confusing. We hadn't seen one like this before, so this is a little bit more complicated. Go ahead and look at the next one. Pause the video. If you said that if D22 is less than or greater than F25, then the answer is 0. And if D22 is equal to F25, then the answer is the sum of E1 through E10. If you got that, great job. That was definitely more complicated. Props to you. If you didn't, just go back and try it again. I know this is a little bit more complicated, and you definitely want to keep your mind open. We're going to do an activity in the next video, so don't get too frustrated. All right, now the last thing that we want to talk about is when you have text in an if function. So if you put text in an if function, then you have to have quotation marks around it. So for example, if B1 is greater than or equal to 70, then you want the text above average to appear in the cell. And again, because this is text, we put quotations around it. If B1 is less than 70, then the answer is below average. And again, you want the text below average to appear, so we put the quotations in. That's it for if functions. If you need to rewatch this, please do. Watch it as many times as you want. Make sure that you took good notes. Go ahead and go back to MySPX and go ahead and play the payroll video. Make sure that you follow all the instructions and you do the activity with me. And if you have any further questions after the payroll video, I will answer those when we return to class. Have a good night, and I will see you in the next video.